Hey, everybody, it's Kyle Kramer. I'm the executive director at the Earth and Spirit Center, and I'm joined by Cory Lockhart. Hello, Cory.
Hey Kyle, how are you?
I am good, thank you. At least considering it's a pandemic, as we talked about off mic. Cory is for those of y'all who don't know Cory and her work, she is an expert facilitator in nonviolent communication, and she has taught and facilitated workshops and courses for us. And Cory, you've got one coming up, don't you? You want to?
I do. I have a compassionate communication class coming up starting October 13th, actually. So just a few weeks from now.
Okay, well, let's jump in with a kind of a mini lesson here. Tell us, our viewers, what is compassionate communication or nonviolent communication, kind of broadly brushed.
Yes, compassionate communication is often described as a tool. I would actually call it a spiritual practice in the same way that meditation is a spiritual
Hmm.
practice and yoga is a spiritual practice. For me, it is a way, and you can see me even putting my hand on my heart. It is a way for me to slow down and to be mindful in the way that I communicate. Really relying on my own body's wisdom, really relying on cultivating, or I'll say practicing cultivating connection both within myself and with whoever it is that I am trying to communicate. And so for me, it's a process of noticing what's happening in my mind, noticing how my heart is responding, and then trying to get at in my gut what what needs I'm trying to meet and the other person is trying to meet in the interaction that we're having.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for that explanation. Would it be wrong to say that you could maybe also call compassionate communication connected communication, insofar as you're
Yes.
connected to your head, your heart, your intentions, the other person, so forth?
Absolutely. Yes. And when I teach, every time I teach, I always start with the primary goal is connection. I say the
Okay.
primary goal is connection. The primary connection, the one that we have the most control over, is the one with ourself. Because as we are becoming more connected with ourselves, as we get clearer within ourselves, we are better able to connect with other people without losing ourselves. Some of
Mm.
us are really, really good at connecting with other people to the
At our
detriment
cost, right?
of
Uh-huh.
being. And so this is really a process about balance, about staying in connection with myself, honoring my own feelings and needs, and also being connected and honoring what's happening for the other person.
I see. So the compassion really goes both ways, toward yourself and toward the other.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
understood. So who besides like everybody, who would this class be especially good for?
If This class is good for people who are really feeling the division that we are living in. We are
I said
living in
besides
divisive
everybody, Cory.
times. Yes, yes, besides everybody. People who are ready to experiment, to
Mm.
practice a different framework. So we live in a framework of shame, blame, judgment, and criticism. That's the culture that we live in. And so I always use a quote from one of Rumi's poems: "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing there and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there." Some of us are ready to experiment with being in the field, and some of us are not ready. And I have no judgment about, if you want to stay in the right wrong thinking or if you want to meet in the field. But this is for people who are ready to experiment with,
Mm.
to see what it might be like to step into that field that's not about wrongdoing and right doing.
Okay, so it's for to put words in your mouth, it's for courageous people, because I think
Yes.
courage has its
Yes.
root in the language of the heart, as I
Yes.
remember.
Yes. And I would even say for people who are ready to practice being courageous.
Yeah.
We may still come into it with fear because this is
Okay.
a vulnerable practice. So people who are willing to touch into their own vulnerability
Hmm.
as a practice of courage.
Absolutely. And what kind of like tools and strategies can folks expect to learn, like practical things they can walk out with and of course instantly have better relationships with their spouse or their coworkers or or their children.
Well, I know you said instantly facetiously, and I'm going to say what I say a lot is it's a practice and
Right?
it's an
And a
experiment.
process.
And it definitely a process. But the tools that I bring in are the basics of NVC, compassionate communication, nonviolent communication, about getting some tools to use of getting clear of what feelings am I experiencing, what might I be hearing as other people are speaking, what might be the underlying needs, both within myself and with other people. We do one of the processes that's one of my favorite processes is really, really looking at how we respond to what difficult messages, whatever we would call a difficult message.
Mm.
And then really the culmination of the class is bringing these practices together and experimenting with practicing with real conversations that we want, that maybe we're in or that we want to have, that are our difficult conversations, and really together in a practice experimenting with using this framework to approach that conversation from
Okay.
that place of courageous connection.
Okay, and just to be clear, the framework you mentioned, this is not something you've just invented whole cloth. You're a certified facilitator in nonviolent communication. There is a whole kind of theoretical and practical framework built around these practices. Is that right?
So this is built on the work of Marshall Rosenberg, who, when he was developing it, said really this is built upon the foundational principles of any of the major philosophical, major theological things, right?
Mm-hmm.
About connection, about compassion. And one of the beautiful things, and one of the things that I really have been bringing into my teaching also, is that as more people are practicing compassionate communication, or NVC, also we are learning the growing edges. So in my own learning, and what I bring into my teaching is how can we work with this tool within the systems that include racism and that include white supremacy? How do we bring that systemic awareness into our interactions?
Right.
And how does that systemic
Right. Well,
what's the interplay?
I have to say that what you just described there is so inspiring to me, because it's not only about personal or like interpersonal healing in these small scale circles of family or friendships or work relationships, but it's also a way to start changing this broader the tone of the broader public conversation as well, and its dynamics.
Yes. And even just naming it,
Yeah.
I really, the more I do this practice, the more I believe that if we just name those dynamics in the first place, then that helps us, one, to approach them in a different way, but two, it also kind of weakens or diminishes
Defangs
the
them, yeah.
power,
Right.
the shame that might be evoked from it,
Mm-hmm.
from those systems.
Yeah. Well, this is exciting work that you do. And I know that it's going to be a small kind of intimate group that you'll work with. So plenty of time for personal interaction.
Yes.
And as you said, this begins October 13th.
13th.
Okay. Wednesday evenings,
Yes.
6:30 to 8:30. Does
Yes.
my memory serve? Okay. Well, we still have slots. And Cory, I hope that many courageous people meet you out in that field beyond right doing and wrongdoing. We're glad you're there, and we're looking forward to this class.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it too.
All right, take care.
All right. Thanks, Kyle.